It's interesting side of coaching because you're having to communicate in multiple languages. It's been a learning curve.
Would you ever consider going back into international coaching? I know you said you never would at the end of 2019.
I would have to be the perfect offer.
Are we going to beat the Springboks in these two test matches?
Well, why not?
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Here he is. It's a big welcome back to a good old mate, Steve Hansen. Sir Steve Hansen, might I say, who's back from Japan, taking a break before you head back to coach that rugby over there. All going well?
Yeah, no, life's been pretty good, and we've enjoyed our wee time back here, and it's always lovely to get back to New Zealand.
Your old mate Todd Blackadder is kicking your butt up there, isn't he?
He's going good, Toddy, and I'm really pleased for him. He's a good man and good coach, so probably didn't get the recognition when he was with the Crusaders. He was a bit unlucky. I think Richie McCaw got penalised unfairly in one final, and then of course they had to go on the road for just about every game in the earthquake year. But no, he's going well. He's got a good side and good Japanese players as well. So very important up there, the mixture of your squad.
You speaking Japanese yet?
Konnichiwa.
Yeah.
I can speak a little bit.
A little bit.
You wouldn't say it's fluent, Martin? No.
No, okay. I know you keep...
It's actually it's interesting side of coaching because you're having to communicate in multiple languages, and it's time consuming.
I bet.
Because you've got to use translators to get it right, and so it's been a learning curve and something that we're challenging ourselves to see how we can do it better going forward. So we'll watch the space and see what we come up with.
Well, I know you keep an eagle eye on what's happening in the international scene, of course, and we're all fascinated to know your thoughts on it. Let's just start with the All Blacks 3 tests against France, and obviously very clearly Scott Robertson, he was intending on blooding all those players, using all those players, and the All Blacks are never an experimental side to play with, but I suppose we've all got to sort of sit back and take a breath on that and go, okay, there is a bigger picture here. So there's a lot to unpack there, but your general thoughts on where you think we're sitting after those 3 tests.
Yeah, well, I think they've been quite smart. Like France gave them the opportunity to experiment, and they've done that. France themselves experimented. They brought out a team without their top players, but they also were prepared to play all their squad. I think 10 changes after that first test, which they could have easily won, was brave on their part. So we ended up seeing their third best side play the second test. But from an All Black point of view, I think the coaches will be happy. They got to put people on the park. They got to see how their game that they want to play operated under some good pressure, and I'm sure they'll grow from that point.
Just you looking at it, what do you think is the way that we are trying to play? How would you summarise that?
Well, I can only go on what Scott's talking about when he talks to the media, and he's saying they want to play fast and they want to play a high skilled game, and that takes a lot of. If you're going to play fast, it takes a lot of high skill. So they're working on that, and it'll take a little while to bed it in, but if they get it right and they're allowed to play fast, it suits New Zealand rugby. Like we are, if you look at the touch game, we're a free ball nation, whereas Australia like to play to structure, and we're not a big structured nation. I think we like to use our skill and use our initiative and play what's in front of us. So I think that's what they're trying to do. Whether the opposition allow them to do that will be, the big $60 million question, I guess.
Is that the best way at the moment to be attacking these other international sides, and particularly the Springboks and the way that they play? I mean, or I suppose the other question is, do we try and out-Springbok the Springboks? Is it much smarter? Obviously, it seems so, doesn't it, that we try and play a different way or our way to them?
Well, I think the last thing you just said is probably the key, isn't it? Like, we've got to play to our strengths. South Africa always play to their strength, which is their big physicality and their big men, and we've got to play to the strengths that we believe we have, and the team they've selected allows them to play a fast game because they're all good athletes. However, there's no right or wrong way to play. It comes down to who's allowed to play the way they want to play on the day, and the opposition have a big say in that.
Looking at the 4 games that they've played, everything about them over the last couple of years, are they beatable, South Africa?
Yeah, well, they've been beaten, so that tells you they are beatable. And, they roll the dice every time they go to their split bench and look, they've got people that can cover in the back so they get multiple injuries, but they are rolling the dice, and so far they've got away with it. And makes it hard because in the past they've probably run out of petrol a little bit. What they're doing now is making sure players are being replaced by like players, and they've got a genuine, real physicality. They've had some success with it. They believe in it, and they trust it. But to beat them, you have to shake that trust a bit and challenge their thinking and challenge that space where they think they can dominate you physically. So you've got to front up. It doesn't matter who you play anyway in a test match. You've got to front up with numbers 1 to 8 and be prepared to be physical, and your backs have to be against South Africa as well. So, and the All Blacks are more than capable of doing that, as are many other teams.
In terms of that,
I really like the look of England.
Okay,
England are starting to put a really good squad. You look at what they've got in the Lions and the recent series against Argentina. They played really well against Argentina and are building quite a bit of depth there. So I think they'll be hard to beat going forward.
In terms of that bomb squad that South Africa bring on, where they bring on effectively another forward pack, so in days gone by, the idea would be to gas them after 60 minutes, but obviously that they have that ability to replace that. Is that good for World Rugby, the way that they can do that? And what is the best way to look at it and think, okay, it is what it is, we have to adjust around it?
Well, South Africa are going to play to their strengths. And Rassie's made a big thing about that, and he throws in these weird and wonderful innovative things every now and again just to tease you. But the basics of the South African game is they're going to beat you up, and they're going to come along and really dominate up front and allow their backs to get front football and play on top of you. And, it's hard to stop. So whoever's going to beat them has to decide that we're not going to be dominated up front and not allow them that front football, and then let's see where it goes. Do you have to meet their bomb squad with a bomb squad? Don't know. You just got to have a physicality mindset to be able to go at them and take away their strengths, and then say, righto, let's play to ours.
Are you impressed with, say, like guys like Fletcher Newell and Fabian Holland, who have shown that you can actually play 80 minutes of a test match, 80 minutes on the field? I mean, it seems to be something that has been forgotten, or we just assume these days that guys come off after 55, 60 minutes.
Look, Fletcher Newell's, I think, has played really well. Scrummaging good. The All Black scrum at the moment is one of their weapons. Fabian's young guys. Not very often do you get a debutant play 3 tests in a row and play 80 minutes. So he's got a big motor. But there's always somebody that has to play 80 minutes because you've only got 8 reserves and there's 15 in the group. So
do the math.
Someone's got to have to play 80. Yeah. Wasn't my best subject at school either, mate.
How has it changed since 2019? When you look at after you finish coaching the All Blacks, that is almost 5-6 years of international rugby. Has the game, in your eyes, changed? And if so, how it has been played at that level?
Oh, it's changed, but the basics of the game hasn't changed. You've got to win your ball, you've got to go forward, and you've got to find space, whether you run into it, pass into it, or kick into it. Those things haven't changed, but what's changed is the little nuances around the game. You've got a lot of interpretations. The breakdown, for example, I think is Northern Hemisphere sides really look to attack the breakdown and slow ball down. And have we got the rules around the breakdown right? Not sure. And I mean, when I say right for the referees to be able to be consistent within games and then from game to game. It's a game at the moment that's dominated more by probably defence and physicality than expressing yourself. In the past, I think you were able to express yourself because the breakdown wasn't so fiercely contested, but now every breakdown's contested. I don't know if you watched the game last night, Lions in the First Nations Pacific game, they really challenged each other in the breakdown there. A lot of turnovers, and particularly when the Lions went wide, and their skill set in the Lions is really high. I think their passing and catch and pass is good. They find space on the fringes, but sometimes when they get caught out there because of that they sometimes can be a bit vulnerable to turnovers. So you got to weigh all that up on how you want to play.
We've had conversation in the past. I was sitting there watching the two tests on the weekend, us against France and the Wallabies against the Lions with a good mate, and he said, he was talking about, and he used to actually own Rugby Pass, which ended up getting sold to World Rugby, so he spent a fair bit of time watching rugby, and he says, he was talking about the changes that need to be made to the game, and he said, some of the best brains need to get around a table. I said, Steve Hansen's been doing this for a long time, talking about changes that you'd like to make and changes that you think would help the referees. And you've been big on that it's such a difficult game to referee. And so the changes you've always talked about are how can we get the referees to be able to be less involved in the game? How can we make it simpler for them as well? Have you broadened that in terms of the changes that you would like to make? And if not, just reiterate those that you still think would help the game today.
Well, I think they need to sit down with a group of people away from World Rugby and away from being attached to any international team at the moment, and say, right, what can we do with the rule book that allows it to be simplified? If you look at the game of league's a simple game.
Very much so.
And because it's simple, it's easy to ref. Their bunker system is very clear. Sometimes, you look at their knock-ons and you think, well, that's not really a knock-on, but they've got it really defined. So, okay, if you drop the ball, it's a knock-on.
Pretty much.
And it's simple. If we drop the ball, did it go forward or did it go back or did it go down? And, so for me, it's not so much about changing a whole lot of things. It's just about trying to make things simpler to interpret. And we've just got too many rules. And we're not going to change that unless we get an independent group that comes in and are given the ability to go away and work on something and come back without any interference from the game itself and the people that run the game and say, right, okay, you guys go away and simplify this. And I think there's I spoke to the referees a few years ago, and one thing I said to them was, you guys should send the rules back that you find hard to ref.
Right.
Rather than sit here and argue about interpretation. To me, that's a red flag. Like, if you've got 20 of the best referees in the world sitting here and you don't all agree on how to interpret it, then we've got a problem with the rules. So try and deal with it before it gets onto the actual playing field, I think, would be a better way of doing what we're doing. But, it's a big piece of work, and whether they can be bothered doing it or not, I don't know.
Well, and then once an independent body, whoever it was, then those would have to be then ratified by those who run the game and then implemented, and these things always seem to take such a long time. I mean, you look at NRL, Rugby League in particular, when they make a rule change, they make it today and they just get it done, don't they? It just seems that everything takes so much longer with rugby.
Yeah, well, I guess we compare it to a competition that's very local, and rugby the difference between league and rugby is monumental, but the difference from an administrative point of view is who plays it and who controls what happens. So effectively what happens in NRL in Australia is you've got a very, very good administration group led by Peter V'landys, and they know that they've got to be progressive, and they know that if they want to take on the markets they're taking on, they have to be progressive quickly. So they do that, whereas we shoot ourselves in the foot because we all try and protect our own patch. Or, I remember when I coached Wales, the first meeting I went to the Six Nations group, it was all about making sure we weren't allowing rules to come through for the Southern Hemisphere. And when you go to the Southern Hemisphere meetings, it's a little better, but not much. So it's all about patch protecting rather than making the game the most important thing. And if we made the game the most important thing, we would speed up the process, but we don't. And we've got a lot of fingers in the pie and the decision making, rather than saying, right, you're the man, you make the decision. If you're happy, we'll run with it.
Is it ever going to change? Is this ever going to change?
It's easy to say that. Well, I'm not sure, Marty. Probably not, because it's easy to say what I just said.
Yeah.
But in reality, making it work like that is a lot tougher. But that is the big advantage league in Australia has. Like, it's their game. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit like India in the cricket. If India want rules changed, they change the rules.
Yeah.
And you don't have too many arguments because they pay the bills.
There you go.
But rugby doesn't have that luxury.
Is the global calendar a good thing, or does that need dismantling itself? I mean, I often sort of think, that somehow we've got to try and coordinate it, because it'd be great to see the Super Rugby sides even playing against those teams from the Northern Hemisphere. It'd be great to see some of your Japanese club sides who look really strong somehow being integrated. It'd be great to see somehow longer tours actually be resumed, or that these June and July tests don't get used as an experiment, that we actually do get to play each other full time. And I just wonder, obviously with the time zones and the different seasons, everything, is it possible somehow to eventually get this where rugby is one actual season across the world? It doesn't matter what hemisphere or weather-wise it's played, but just, can you see what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's possible, but you need the agreement of a lot of people. And who's going to change the Six Nations? That's a cash cow.
Yeah.
So again, it's about getting people in the room that want to be aligned and want the same thing, and it's really difficult when you've got a lot of people. Again, when you look at league, and we really don't see a lot of league from the Northern Hemisphere down here. There's not a lot of it on TV, but we see a lot of league in Australia, and so they make the decisions that's good for their game. I'm repeating myself a wee bit here, but so for us to get a global calendar, it's not global until such time as we all agree that this is how we want to structure it, and who's prepared to give up what. And probably the Southern Hemisphere would have to bend far greater than the Northern Hemisphere for it to work, because the Six Nations is such a big carrot in their calendar.
The Lions and this tour of Australia, do you give Australia any hope at all in the second and third tests? How can they possibly turn this around and beat this team?
I think they can, and I think they will be better in the second test. Like, the first test for any home team is always the toughest. Excuse me, because you're coming together and versing a team that's touring, that's together every day, has been for quite some time. So the first thing is they'll be better for the hit out and experience. I thought they would be disappointed in their first 30 minutes against the Lions, but we're really competitive for the last 50. And I think they'll take some confidence out of that. They need to play against them. They can't take them on just one-off running, and I'm sure they've learnt that. But they're definitely a very, very good side, the Lions, and they're well drilled and they understand how they want to play, and that's the luxury of a tour. And I think that's been one of the highlights is having a tour that you've got a team playing all these teams. First Nation Pacific last night was a wonderful game. The Anzac game didn't go as well as we all would have liked it, but we didn't have the quality of people available to go to it. And, if they're going to do that again, I think both nations have to sit down and say, righto, what do we want out of this game? And send the right people. However, seeing the Queensland and Brumbies play them, and it's the same when they come here. Everyone loves the tour. So getting more touring would be great, I reckon, in a calendar, and getting the All Blacks on tour, playing some midweek games would be great as well, because it allows you to build your depth without the fear of losing test matches.
Would you ever consider going back into international coaching? I know you said you never would at the end of 2019, but you're still coaching at the moment. I mean, you've had a few years to refresh. You're looking at it again. Would you? Offer came along?
I would have to be the perfect offer, and I don't think there probably is one. So, but you never say never. But I think I've done my time in that.
Are we going to beat the Springboks in these 2 test matches?
Well, why not?
Hope so.
Why not? Yeah, I think Eden Park Test is going to be a boomer. They'll come expecting to win, and there's a big record to try and maintain there. And there's never too much in a Springbok Test. Like every now and again, there's a blowout. I think we had one in North Harbour one year. We won pretty comfortably, and obviously they won up in Twickenham pretty comfortably. But there's never really a big blowout, regardless of who's dominant and who's not at the time. So I think it'll be a very tough test series, but one that'll be enjoyable, and I think we're very, very, very much capable of winning both tests.
Final question. Your old mate Rob Penny bounced back after the first year and won with the Crusaders again. How good would the best Japanese teams go? Your best club sides. I'm not talking about cobbled together Sunwolves. I'm talking about, on form, your best club sides in a Super Rugby competition, if we could get that organised.
They'd go okay as long as you were allowed to play all your foreign players as well as your Japanese guys. Currently up in Japan, you can only play 3 full internationals, and then one other foreign player. However, a lot of the clubs have foreign players who have qualified to be what they call Category A players, and the teams that have a large number of those, like Toshiba, like Panasonic, like Kubota, Kobe, they're in a really strong position, and they would compete, I think, comfortably in the Super Rugby. However, I don't know if that's the right thing for Japanese rugby at the moment. I think Japanese rugby is looking to change some of its criteria about foreign players, and if you were to have a super team come out of Japan, I think a genuine, proper Sunwolves team would be the right way to go, and change your competition so you could accommodate that, and play your Japanese League One competition so it finishes in time for you then to select a super team.
Right.
And I think, America is another market that they've probably got to look at some point too.
DSPN.